What's up, y'all? I'm Jay Ryan. Thank you for tuning in to A Journey to Fulfillment. My special guest today is Russell Harris. Russell, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for coming on today.
No problem at all.
Alrighty, so let's get started. Russell, tell me a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, where you from.
Yeah, I'm Russell Harris, originally from Chicago, Illinois. Born and raised to a family of 8. My family is 5 boys and 3 girls. I'm the oldest boy. Grew up humble beginnings, single parent household, homeless. Was given a learning disability as a kid in high school. Was able to navigate that. Go to college. I ran track in college. Was a 3-time All-American. Was able to get a master's degree. From there, study at Stanford. Also become a principal at the age of 25, and study at Harvard. So, just blessed. Now I run an organization in Detroit called the Future Project, where we partner with high school principals to help influence student culture at their schools. So that in itself is a blessing, being able to impact the lives of most of the Detroit public school students. And I'm also in the Army, National Guard. So
That's good. That's good. So, you said you are a sibling of 5 brothers and 3 sisters, right? So how was it growing up for you? In a single parent household. What was that like for you?
yeah, it was tough, especially not being sure of what we would eat at night, having to share clothes. There is things I just didn't understand. My mom kept us in the church 6 days a week, and I didn't understand why she would use her last money to drive us to church. Use that on
Right.
gas and the offering. Those tough trials and tribulations as kids, I believe helped us be the men and women we are today.
Wow.
So although it was tough, I believe it's shaped me into who I am today. And now, as an educator, I get to empathize with students who go through similar
Right,
situations,
right.
and help them get out of those situations. So it's a blessing.
I believe it. So, being the oldest out of your siblings, what kind of responsibilities did you have, or once you realized that, oh, man, I have to take responsibility for my siblings, what was that like? How did you handle that?
Yeah. So my mom and dad divorced when I was 12. I was in 6th grade, and I remember being like, all right, I'm the protector,
Right, right.
So I went from being the guy that's cozy, in the bed at night, to making sure all my siblings are in the bed, doors are locked, making sure my mom worked every night until midnight.
Mm-hmm.
So making sure my mom got in safely every night, those types of things. And honestly, it was just something that was second nature.
Right.
It was an honor to be able to do it.
Right.
And I think the responsibility really was placed on me when my sisters left. So my oldest sister ran away when she was 16.
Wow.
And then my other sister got pregnant at the age of 15. So
Wow.
she left and moved in with my dad. And I was 14. I was a freshman in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to cook, clean, babysit,
Right.
do laundry,
Right.
tutor. I remember times taking my little brothers and sisters to practice with me, which
Mm-hmm.
was, it was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It helped them along their careers
Mm-hmm.
in athletics. But I think for me, it was, like I said, it was an honor.
Right.
Being able to be that for my little brothers and sisters.
That's good.
So-
That's good to have that mindset. So, in high school, you said you were an all-star American for track. So I'm sure you were, pretty popular and stuff. So how did you handle, dealing with your friends, and also, having to take care of your brothers and sisters? What were your challenges regarding your friends, wanting to hang out and, go out and party, I'm sure, stuff like that. So what were your challenges? How did you, balance and have time for both?
Yeah, so I was an All-American in college.
Oh, in college, okay.
But in high school, I picked, so my freshman year, and the last day of school, I got into a fight.
Wow.
And I caught myself hanging out with the wrong crowd. I was hanging out with some guys that were in a gang,
Mm-hmm.
and we got into it with a local gang.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being the only guy fighting
Wow.
and looking around, and all my
Like,
guys
where my
standing
boys at?
around like, So the principal came and broke it up, and the guy that I was fighting, he was an 18-year-old sophomore.
Wow.
And the principal was like, yo, he's getting kicked out of school, but for you, you know, you're suspended for 7 days. And in my head, I'm like, yo, we only got 1 day left of school.
Right.
So they suspended me. They made me come in over the summer and retake my classes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, this is weak.
Right.
Like, this is terrible.
Right.
You know, so I remember after that being like, yo, I gotta find a different crowd. You know, and my mom used to always, you know, beat in my head that, you know, every decision I made, my little brothers and sisters were looking up to me. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to make sure I was making the right decisions.
Right.
And that just stuck with me. So my friends after my freshman year, you know, my friends changed dramatically. I hung out with the kids that, you know, were athletes, that were scholars, and yeah. So yeah, it changed dramatically.
That's good. But
Yeah.
so what made you decide you wanted to start hanging out with I mean, at the time you probably didn't realize they were the wrong crowd, you know, but you know, what was it about that crowd that drew your attention?
Yeah. So like I said earlier, I was given an IEP, a learning disability, as a kid. They told me I was cognitively impaired, which means that my comprehension skills were low.
Wow.
And it wasn't that my comprehension skills were low. It was just that I was lazy.
Right.
You know, so I remember being in high school in a classroom with kids who were severely mentally ill, and having to walk down the hallway in high school, literally in single file line.
Wow.
Sometimes even holding hands. And for me, that made me change a lot about my high school career. You know, I was embarrassed, but also knew that I can do better.
Right.
So once I started surrounding myself with different people, the scholars, the athletes, you know, it just became second nature.
Right.
It was just the expectation to perform well in the classroom. It was the expectation to be on time in class. It was the expectation to go to practice, you know, things like that. And yeah, my friends, I remember two of my friends to this day. One, he was my college roommate, and then the other, one of my best friends. I was the best man in his wedding a few years ago. So
that's good. That's good. So when you decide, once you graduated graduated high school, how was that transition from high school, you know, to college? And when, like, did you still, you know, throughout the time you were graduating, have the learning disability in college, or how did that, you know, fade away?
Yeah. So, man, the transition from high school to college was tough.
I believe it. I believe it.
Man, in high school, I didn't really have to study. You know, in high school, I had friends who would type my papers for me.
Wow.
Take my tests for me. I mean, I was a popular guy. You know, I had people in keyboarding class that would literally type for me.
Wow.
And not do their own. They would just do it for me. You know, so
right.
I got to college and was in shock when I figured out I had to actually study. And I remember signing up for a religion class thinking that, you know, my mom kept us in church 6 days a week. This is going to be an easy A.
Right.
Boy, was all wrong. I failed religion, and I think the hardest thing for me to do was to tell my mom that I failed religion and that if I didn't get my grades up, they would kick me out of school.
Wow.
So let's just say I buckled down.
Right.
And in terms of my learning disability, it was never a disability. It was more a lack of motivation for me to want to apply myself in certain classes. So yeah, I just applied myself. And sometimes with education, sometimes when something is hard, we quit. And it's like, nah, it's not about that. With education, when it gets hard, you just have to spend more time on it.
Right.
Like practicing
it.
Like just in front of it. And sooner or later, you'll get it. So, man, I spent some quality time in the library.
I believe it.
And was able to get on top of my grades and graduate.
That's good. That's good. So, you know, in college, you know, we're young, you know, we just now getting there. It's our freshman year, just leaving high school. So right now, in the state that you are in, for us millennials, you know, that we're heading to college or we're already in college, what are some of the tips, you know, for us to buckle down and for us to, you know, do what we got to do in order to reach where we want to go?
Yeah, one tip is you gotta want it.
Right.
I was a guy that talked the talk, but didn't necessarily walk the walk.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got exposed for not walking the walk,
Mm-hmm.
I was embarrassed.
Wow.
So you gotta want it. You gotta say you want it, but your output, like your work ethic, has to match
Right.
what you're talking about.
Right.
Don't be in college and say, oh yeah, I'm gonna graduate from college, but you party.
Right.
You gotta want that thing bad. Like I remember being in school in college, and on the weekend, all the homies going out to party, and literally being at the desk in my room, typing or studying or doing whatever.
That's good.
Like you gotta be willing to, like, sacrifice things that you've never sacrificed before in order to get there.
Sacrifice.
So that's a big one. Like, want it, sacrifice, and then I think just to be successful in life, you gotta have values. I lost sight of my values my freshman year of college.
Wow.
My mom, like I said, raised us in church 6 days a week. Man, I got to college and I partied.
Wow.
Got it in every day. And I remember being like, what am I doing? There's nothing for me to celebrate. What am I celebrating for?
Right.
And when I stopped all that, man, started progressing academically. I got back on track with my values, man. So
That's
for
good.
me, my values are hard work, family, of course, spirituality, and then one thing that I really value more now as an adult than I did as a kid is resilience. Like you gotta be willing to take the heat, take some pressure, and bounce back. And it's in that bounce back, like that's the learning curve. It's in that learning curve that you grow. So resiliency is huge.
Wow.
It's huge. Yeah.
I believe it. So now, leaving, from college, where did you go to college your freshman year to get your bachelor's?
Yeah, it's called Wartburg College. It's
Wartburg
in
College.
Waverly, Iowa.
Okay.
Town of about 1,800 people. Small town.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you were studying business there, correct?
I changed my major 3 times. I started off as a business major.
Okay.
Went to social work. And I finished with a fitness management exercise science degree.
Wow. Okay. So after you left there, where did you go? What did you do?
I went to a school, at the time it was called Mountain St. Clair's College. It was a Catholic college ran by nuns.
Wow. How was that? Before you go further, how was that?
It was interesting. They switched right when I got there. So some of the nuns were still teaching the classes, but it wasn't like it used to be.
Right.
So it was interesting. It was a good experience. They changed the name to Ashford University. I got my master's there in organizational management and leadership, and great experience. I was able to get a graduate assistant position and working in an admissions office. So I was able to recruit kids to go to school. And most times the kids that I was able to recruit, if they had the right academics, I was able to give them scholarships to go to school. So
that's awesome.
That was a blessing. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so now after you left there, so then you went on to do what?
Yeah, so I left Ashford University working in their admissions office to go back to my alma mater, the place where I went to undergrad at Wartburg, to work in their admissions office.
Okay.
And I was able to recruit a lot of students to come to Waverly, Iowa, and get their degrees.
Awesome.
And from there, I moved to Chicago, still working for the school. But I realized that I was more than being an admissions counselor. Nothing against admissions counselors, because I learned a lot, but I wanted more. I found that the kids that I was recruiting to go to school didn't have the right academics to be accepted.
Wow.
So I remember applying to all these different jobs in education. So teaching positions, dean positions, like PE teaching positions, whatever I can get in. And there was this one role I applied to. It was like a assistant principal role. And the superintendent emailed me and said, pretty much like, you're not qualified for this yet. Take this janitor position and one day you'll be qualified. I was like,
nah.
Fuel gave me a fire.
Right.
Man, that's still going today. Like, yeah. So I went to Stanford to study business, and it just opened up my world from there. So after I left Stanford, I got into education. I worked at the Jalen Rose Leadership Academy as a dean. From there, I went to assistant principal at the same school, and from there I was principal.
Wow.
And we became the highest performing charter school, open enrollment charter school in Detroit. 100% of our students were accepted to college. Over 96% of our students were graduating, which is huge. So it was a blessing.
That's good.
It was a blessing.
That's good. So it seems as though, working as a principal and, what you're doing now, you're very passionate about, working with the youth and working with the kids and stuff like that. So how was your experience as a principal?
Yeah, I loved it. I loved working with the kids because they knew I was young. I could relate to them. We didn't really have any issues at the school.
Wow.
Like, it was a family. The staff was close. The students, we were close. Man, walking into our school building, you when you walked in, you saw it. Like, all right, something's not right. Like, these cats are a little bit too close, So we were able to build a culture there that fostered success for our students. So I love that piece of it. The piece that I hated was the bureaucracy and the political game of being a principal.
Wow.
So having to answer to people that didn't understand education and didn't want to understand education.
Right.
They just wanted to be. They just were concerned with the output, but also just the numbers. And for me, my babies, my students weren't numbers. They were human beings, and I wasn't with the political game. So that was the hard piece for me.
Wow.
So, but yeah, love working with the students, love working with the parents, love working with my staff.
Awesome. So where did your passion come from, wanting to work with kids? Has it always been that? Was it something that, happened in your lifetime that caused you to want to work with kids?
So if you would have told me when I was in high school that I would be a high school principal, I would have told you were crazy. Even in college, if you would have told me, I was, stop playing.
Right.
But I realized that all of my mentors, especially my male mentors, throughout my life, were educators.
Wow.
So it started in 6th grade with my 6th grade teacher, Mr. Morgan. And matter of fact, I can trace it back to 4th grade with my 4th grade teacher, Mr. Gargoni. 6th grade, Mr. Morgan. I got to high school. There was Coach Holbert.
Wow.
Right. We had a black principal at the time, Mr. Young, John L. Young. I get to college. My track coach, who was also a professor, Coach Newsom. So most of my role models were all educators. And I think naturally it just happened that way. Awesome. I wanted to be like all of these guys.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
That's what's up. So now, in your time, do you have somebody that you're looking up to now? You had your mentor in 4th grade, 6th grade, throughout high school, throughout college, I believe. So what about now? Who's impacting you now to keep you pushing?
Yeah, always have a mentor. No matter where you are in life, always have somebody who can pull you. So my mentor right now is Eric Thomas. He's a motivational speaker. He's also a pastor. I talked to him 2 days ago. Great guy.
Awesome.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say about the brother, but he motivates me. It's weird because when I just finished my undergrad degree, I was working as a security guard for the school, and it was 3rd shift, so midnight shift, graveyard shift, and I remember being at the computer and being on Facebook, and I seeing his video pop up. And I looked at his video, and the whole overview or the objective of the video was when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe. And man, I looked at that video. I applied to grad school that night.
Wow.
Got the call from the grad school the next day. And literally, I remember being all throughout grad school, looking at his videos, all throughout, like, being an admissions counselor, looking at his videos. So when I moved to Detroit, I went to Lansing to go hear him speak. And he was real cool. And he was like, yo, I'm performing or I'm speaking in Arizona. You should come check me out. So we went to Arizona, my brother and I checked him out. He gave me his cell phone number. And I remember him coming to my school to speak once. And then I was made principal. And he came to my school every single week for the first semester to speak.
Wow.
And he's just very supportive. Whatever I've ever needed, he's always been there. So it's good to have mentors.
Awesome, man. So you being a mentor yourself, what do you suggest to us as millennials and even young men that are out here that are still trying to find themselves, that, you know, grew up in a single parent home, that don't really have a mentor? What can you say to us that can help us, you know, believe in ourselves, that can help us, you know, want to move forward, find our values, find our purpose in life? What can you say to us?
Yeah, so I would say if you don't have a mentor, get one. If you can't find one, you can create the ideal you. Meaning, like, you can pull from different puzzles, you can pull from different pieces, things that you like about strong men, things that you like about strong people, like add it to your tool belt and create the ideal you.
Awesome.
I think for me, you know, since my dad wasn't always in my life, it was off and on, I learned how to be a man from different males that was around me, but also what I saw that was good from social media, what I saw that was good from other males in the community, what I saw from that was good from like the Bible, like things like that. I put all these pieces together and it created me, you know.
Awesome.
So yeah, do that. And I will also say the Bible has a strong platform on how to lead or live your life. So start there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So now you've grown up in church, you know, you've had a relationship with God. So how has your relationship with God impacted your life to this day?
Yeah, without God, there's no way I would be where I am today. You know, man, thinking about, it's crazy, man. It kind of get me choked up. Thinking about where I was as a kid, you know, sleeping in the minivan with my whole family, you know, sharing the bed with my whole family, not being sure what we'll eat at night, to, you know, being prosperous now, you know, having options, you know, being able to live the life that I live and being able to give back and pour into other people. I realized, man, if it wasn't God, there's no way I would have gotten through any piece of, you know, the turbulence as a man, you know, even as a kid. So, yeah, without him, man, there's nothing that's possible.
That's awesome. I believe it as well. So now, before we wrap up, where do you see Russell Harris going in 5 years? What are your future plans you have set?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's my goal to start an all-boys school in Detroit that focuses on developing discipline, but also academic rigor and teaching young men, the importance of academic success so that they can have successful post-secondary careers.
That's awesome.
So that's the number one goal for the next 5 years.
Awesome.
So be on the lookout.
Yes, sir. Well, you guys heard it first. So, Russell, one last question. What does it mean to be fulfilled in your eyes? What is your personal definition of being fulfilled?
That's a great question. Being fulfilled is being able to operate from a space of not necessarily comfort, but being able to operate from a space of gratitude due to the understanding of the blessings and the abundance that you've been given.
Awesome.
You know, so it's like my cup runneth over. So I'm going to make sure that the run over is going into somebody else's cup.
Yes, sir. What's up, y'all? Thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's episode. My special guest today was Russell Harris. And Russell, again, I thank you so much for being a guest on today's show. You guys can catch today's interview streamed on YouTube. You can view all of my release dates, my topics, and my next special guest on my social media pages. Hope you guys enjoyed. Remember, I'm your host, Jay Ryan, and I'll see you soon.